What if I told you that the most impossible love story in the world didn't begin in life, but in death? I know it sounds absurd, but some connections are so deep that not even the last breath can break them. Gabriel died in the accident. That's a fact. What no one expected is that he would continue by Elisa's side, not as a movie ghost, but as a real presence that transcends any logic, any religion, any human explanation. In this video, you'll discover a romance that defies the boundaries between the living and the dead, a spiritual bond so intense that it transformed guilt into healing, pain into music, and goodbye into liberation. Before we continue, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment. Do you believe in connections that cross worlds? Now take a deep breath, because the story is just beginning. It was supposed to be just another routine ride for Gabriel, a seasoned rideshare driver used to reading silent stories in his rearview mirror. But that night, something felt off, as if the world itself were breathing differently. Across the city, Elisa, a classical violinist, walked with her instrument pressed to her chest, gripped by an unnameable unease, as if the music sensed something that she didn't. When their paths finally collided at the crossroad, the crash wasn't just between cars, it was between destinies. The metallic explosion tore through the night like a dissonant note. In the millisecond before everything went dark, Gabriel saw Elisa's eyes, frightened, fragile, almost apologizing to the universe for being there. And in that impossible instant, something invisible ignited between them, right before everything faded. For the witnesses, it was just an accident. But something about that collision defied human logic. While Elisa survived among sirens and blurred voices, Gabriel felt life slipping away with the strange certainty that he wasn't leaving alone. He sensed, like an ancient whisper, that this woman would still need him. And that intuition, he simply couldn't let go. Gabriel awakens in silence, but not the kind he knew in life. It is a luminous emptiness, as if the world had been washed clean and rebuilt only with light and soft breathing. He tries to remember his body, the weight of his bones, the chill of the night, but everything feels distant, as if it were a memory that no longer belongs to him. There is only one strange sensation, that he isn't alone, even though no one is visibly there. Slowly, the brightness begins to take shape, forming delicate, almost liquid contours. That's when Gabriel notices a figure walking toward him. Tall, serene, with eyes that don't shine, they simply exist. Lysandra. She doesn't speak with her mouth, but with a presence that touches his thoughts the way a fingertip touches still water. Gabriel feels a deep peace, but also a question swelling inside him. Where am I? And why am I awake after death? Lysandra doesn't answer right away. She simply approaches, extends her hand, and guides him through a space where there is no ground but also no falling. Gabriel realizes that time doesn't flow there, it pulses. And as he tries to adjust to that suspended plane, something bothers him, as if part of himself were anchored somewhere else. Lysandra senses his unrest, but only says, "There is something you haven't left behind." And that simple, gentle phrase opens a new mystery before him, one he is not yet ready to face. Elisa wakes up in the hospital to the distant sound of machines and hurried footsteps, but what truly awakens her is the silence inside, a heavy, suffocating silence. She tries to move her hands but feels her body stiff, overtaken by a guilt so intense it seems to have physical weight. The name, Gabriel, which she heard only once in that tragic moment, begins echoing in her mind like an open wound. In the days that follow, even after being discharged, Elisa can barely touch her violin. Each string vibrates as if exposing something she doesn't want to remember, the fact that she survived while someone else didn't. She becomes an expert at avoiding mirrors, people, and especially her own emotions. Her friends try to help, but Elisa replies with empty smiles, as if trying to convince the world, and herself, that she is fine. At night, guilt becomes ritual. Elisa sits on her bed, grips the pillow tightly, and lets her mind repeat the same question. What if it was my fault? Even though she knows the accident was unavoidable, she feels responsible for having existed in the wrong place at the wrong time. The emotional weight begins to corrode her routine, her sleep, and her art, but there's something she hasn't noticed. This guilt isn't hers alone. It's the invisible thread still connecting her to Gabriel, and she's about to discover that in the most inexplicable way. In the first week after returning home, Elisa begins noticing small oddities, details so subtle anyone else would have dismissed them. A door swaying on its own, the soft smell of rain inside her apartment, a sense of presence that appears and disappears like breath. She tries to rationalize it, of course. Trauma, stress, an exhausted imagination. But deep down, something in her knows this isn't just a psychological echo. Nights become even more unsettling. Elisa starts dreaming of a dim light she can't identify, one that watches her with a strangely familiar calm. Sometimes she wakes with the impression that someone had touched her shoulder. Other times, her heart races as if she had just run away from a conversation she doesn't remember. The oddest thing is that these dreams don't frighten her. They leave her with a bittersweet melancholy, like meeting someone who shouldn't be there. Slowly, the house comes alive. The radio turns on by itself, tuned to stations she never listens to. The doorknob trembles slightly as she walks past. The violin releases isolated notes in the middle of the night, as if someone were trying to learn to play it with invisible fingers. Elisa tries to ignore it, but the feeling becomes impossible to push away. Someone is trying to speak to her. And although she doesn't know it yet, it's Gabriel, crossing the boundary between worlds, trying to tell her he's still there, without understanding why he can't leave. The first time Elisa finds the sheet music, it's lying on her living room floor, as if someone had left it there in a hurry. The strange part is that she recognizes the paper. It's from her own composition notebook, but she doesn't recognize the music. The melody written on it is soft, flowing, almost like a whisper turned into notes. And at first glance, a shiver runs down her spine, as if the music itself were alive. Intrigued, Elisa lifts the violin to her shoulder and begins to play. The first notes come out timid, but soon the melody fills the room with an almost tangible presence. It is a song that seems to be asking for something, as if trying to complete an emotional sentence she doesn't know how to finish. In the middle of the performance, Elisa feels the air grow slightly colder, and she has the clear impression she is not playing alone. In the days that follow, the melody keeps reappearing, sometimes with new passages written in the same soft, unfamiliar handwriting. With every added note, Elisa feels herself getting closer to someone she cannot see but can feel. And on the other side, Gabriel hears the music as if it were crossing worlds. He doesn't know how he is creating it, but he senses the melody doesn't come from him alone. It comes from the bond that refuses to let them part. A song that shouldn't exist, but exists because neither of them knows how to say goodbye. The first time Elisa sees the silhouette, she doesn't immediately understand what's happening. She's making tea, distracted, when a shiver runs up her spine, the kind that doesn't come from cold, but from something touching her from the inside. She lifts her eyes toward the kitchen mirror and, for an instant that seems longer than it should, she sees a luminous figure behind her. It isn't frightening. It isn't dark. It is gentle, like a memory trying to take shape. Elisa freezes. Her heart races, but she doesn't feel fear, she feels recognition. The silhouette has masculine contours, a calm posture, almost protective. Before she can turn her body to confirm what she's seeing, the light dissolves like bright dust. The reflection returns to normal. The kitchen stays the same. But Elisa does not. In the days that follow, the apparition repeats itself in subtle ways. A pale shadow in the mirror's corner, the reflection of someone passing behind her, a light that seems to follow when the house is dark. Elisa tries to deny it, to rationalize it, even to ignore it. But there's something impossible to ignore. Every time the silhouette appears, she feels peace. A peace that doesn't belong to grief, nor to guilt. A peace that can only come from someone still trying to say, I'm here. And though she doesn't know it yet, Elisa is about to discover that this presence has a name, and a reason it cannot leave. At the spiritual threshold, Gabriel begins to notice something unsettling. No matter how much Lysandra guides him, he cannot move forward. Every time he tries to follow the light opening before him, an invisible force pulls him back, as if he were still anchored to the world of the living. It's a paradoxical sensation, light as air yet heavy as stone, preventing him from crossing the path most spirits naturally take. He tries to understand what's holding him, but every answer dissolves before it forms. Gabriel feels something on earth calling him insistently, not like a scream, but like an emotional thread that refuses to break. Lysandra watches his struggle with serene eyes, as someone who already knows the outcome but allows the seeker to discover it in his own time. Still, Gabriel feels a growing anguish. Why can't I move on? The question echoes in the luminous space without receiving an answer. As what he can't tell is time or sensation passes, the blockage intensifies. Every time Elisa plays the mysterious melody, Gabriel feels a vibration pulling him back, like a magnet between two worlds. It's then that he begins to accept an uncomfortable truth. Something of his remains unfinished, something involving Elisa. And as long as that bond stays open, the passage before him will remain closed, waiting for the moment when they both understand the reason for this connection that shouldn't exist, yet undeniably does. Lysandra finally breaks the silence she has carried since Gabriel's arrival. She leads him to an even more ethereal space, a field where light seems to breathe, and there, with a calm that surpasses any human understanding, she reveals the truth he has been avoiding. You and Elisa are not connected by the accident. You are connected by the wounds. The sentence enters Gabriel like a wind that rearranges everything inside him. He tries to understand, but Lysandra's explanation goes beyond earthly logic. She shows emotional fragments, not images. Elisa's fear, Gabriel's sense of responsibility, the guilt both carried long before they met. As if they were two broken rivers that, upon colliding, formed a single emotional current. You recognized each other in the instant of death, Lysandra says, not because you knew each other, but because you hurt in the same way. Gabriel feels the weight of this revelation. It isn't just that he is stuck because of Elisa, it's that they are stuck to each other. The bond woven through the melody, the dreams, her home, didn't begin after death, it was awakened by it. Lysandra ends with something that leaves him even more unsettled. To move on, you must set her free. And she must set you free. And that truth opens a new dilemma. How do you free someone who doesn't yet know they are bound? Elisa sits on the living room floor, holding her violin as if trying to keep her heart from collapsing. The mysterious melody lies in front of her, and she stares at it as though waiting for the notes to explain something her soul still can't understand. Then an unexpected sensation washes over her, soft, warm, familiar. It isn't comfort, but something greater. It feels like someone is telling her, without words, that she doesn't need to carry everything alone. Suddenly, a phrase echoes inside her, as clear as a whisper spoken right beside her ear, I forgive you. Elisa's eyes widen. The message doesn't come from outside. It comes from within, but it isn't her voice. It's as if the guilt she has been nurturing finally receives an answer not from logic or trauma, but from a presence that has always been there, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Tears fall before she even notices. It isn't sadness, nor relief, it's recognition. Something inside her dissolves, like an emotional wall finally understanding it doesn't need to exist. And in that same instant, on the other side of the spiritual threshold, Gabriel feels the vibration of forgiveness sweep through his essence like a flash of light. He doesn't know how she heard it or if she truly heard it, but he knows she received the message. And this small break in the guilt binding them is the first step toward something greater, something they both still need to discover together. That night, Elisa feels something different as she falls asleep, as if the weight she carried had shifted. It hasn't lessened, but it feels divided. She dreams of a white, undefined space where she can't see anyone, but she clearly senses someone walking beside her. It's a strange, almost comforting feeling, as if her pain were no longer hers alone. As if someone were holding her from underneath, keeping her from sinking by herself. Meanwhile, at the spiritual threshold, Gabriel experiences the same sensation in reverse. For the first time since his death, he realizes his sadness isn't isolated. It's as if part of Elisa's burden has crossed the veil and blended with his own, creating an uneven balance, painful but shared. Gabriel understands, even without words, that this isn't punishment, it's connection. A connection that reveals they are bound not by guilt itself, but by what that guilt represents. This silent exchange transforms something within them. Elisa wakes with tears she can't explain, but she feels that some part of her grief has been received by someone unseen. Gabriel, in turn, feels the light around him pulse as if acknowledging this bond. In that moment, both begin to realize they are not connected only through guilt, but through the deep need to set each other free. And this discovery opens the path to an even greater revelation, one that will change their spiritual fate forever. Elisa's nights begin to gain a new presence, not threatening but intriguing. In one of her dreams, she sees a child sitting on the same white expanse that has become familiar to her. The boy is about 7 years old, with dark hair and eyes so deep they seem to reflect not the space around them, but ancient emotions. He holds a small toy violin and, without speaking a single word, plays the same mysterious melody that has been appearing throughout Elisa's home. Each note feels like it's echoing inside her. Elisa tries to approach him, but the boy always smiles softly and steps back, as if inviting her to follow yet never reach him. The melody he plays seems more complete than the one on the sheets. There are parts Elisa never wrote, yet she recognizes them with the same intimacy she recognizes her own heartbeat. The boy never speaks. He only plays and watches, with a tranquility far too deep for an ordinary child. In the spiritual threshold, Gabriel senses Nilo's presence like a distant echo, as if the boy were a memory that doesn't exactly belong to him, but approaches whenever the melody is played. Lysandra explains that Nilo is not an ordinary spirit. He is an emotional echo, a fragment born from the combined pain of two wounded souls. He is the embodiment of what Gabriel and Elisa still cannot understand, a symbolic guide created by their own bond. And by following this enigmatic child, both will draw closer to the truth they have yet to uncover. Gabriel begins to feel something inside him shifting, like pieces of glass trying to rearrange themselves. These aren't linear memories, but scattered fragments, sensations, echoes, flashes. He doesn't see full images. He sees colors, lights, the blur of Elisa's car, the instant of impact, the final breath he never finished. Each piece returns as if it had been trapped somewhere deep, waiting for permission to rise. These fragments come with raw, unexpected emotions: fear, surprise, intense compassion for Elisa, and even a fleeting thought that crossed his mind in the seconds before death. A thought he never admitted in life: I failed. Gabriel doesn't know if he failed as a driver, as a person, or if that feeling had always existed, quietly hidden. But now, each fragment reopening itself feels like a wound asking to finally be seen. Lysandra watches everything without interfering. She knows Gabriel needs to revisit this memory to understand not just the accident, but himself. Little by little, he realizes he is not simply reliving his death, he is revisiting the emotional truth he avoided while alive. And the more the fragments align, the more he understands that the accident wasn't the end, it was a mirror exposing what was already broken long before. Now the question is, what will he do with this revelation? As the memories return, Gabriel feels something growing inside him, not fear, not pain, but attachment. An attachment so strong it feels like roots forming in the spiritual threshold. He realizes he doesn't want to move on. Not while Elisa still walks the world carrying a grief he feels as if it were his own. It's almost instinctive, as if caring for her were the last act keeping him whole. Yet this resistance begins corroding the light around him, as if the realm itself sensed his hesitation. Lysandra watches him with the serenity of someone who understands more than she explains. She knows Gabriel isn't trapped by circumstances, but by choice. By an impulse so deeply human it surpasses even death, the desire to remain where he believes he is needed. But she also senses the danger. The more Gabriel tries to stay, the more the threshold tightens around him, as if the spiritual plane is reminding him that every attachment demands a price. Still, Gabriel cannot abandon Elisa. Every time she plays the melody, every time she cries in silence, every time she tries to gather herself in front of a mirror, he feels his essence leaning toward her. It's as if her pain were tied to his heart, not by tragedy, but by the profound empathy born in the instant of death. He knows he cannot stay forever. He knows he shouldn't. But while she remains broken, he simply cannot leave. And this choice begins to reshape the fate of them both. After weeks carrying the weight of endless guilt, something shifts inside Elisa on an unexpectedly quiet morning. She wakes without tears, without jolts, without the sense of collapsing from within. Not because the pain is gone, but because she feels, for the first time, that she needs to transform it. As if a soft voice whispered that remaining broken honors no one, not life, not death, not the invisible bond that keeps brushing against her soul. She takes her violin with a firmness she hadn't felt in months. Instead of avoiding the mysterious melody, she decides to complete it. The notes flow with an almost frightening naturalness, as if her soul were guiding her fingers. The music that emerges is different, not pure grief, not pure guilt. It is catharsis. It is the brave attempt to turn pain into beauty. And as she plays, she feels something inside her open, something that had been locked since the accident. In the spiritual threshold, Gabriel feels the shift like a wave of light passing through him. For the first time, the music doesn't pull him downward, it lifts him. He senses that Elisa isn't merely surviving, she is beginning to rebuild. This small spark of strength reignites something within him, a timid yet powerful hope. And for the first time he considers the possibility that maybe his purpose there is close to being fulfilled. But the greatest revelation is still on its way. That night, when Elisa plays the completed melody, now fully hers, something shifts in the air of the house. The music fills every corner like a quiet embrace, and she feels a calm she hasn't felt since before the accident. It isn't the absence of pain, but the presence of something new, acceptance. She closes her eyes and realizes that, for the first time, she isn't running from what happened. She is looking directly at her wound and allowing it to finally heal. In the spiritual threshold, Gabriel feels the transformation instantly. The light around him expands as if breathing, opening a path that had been closed until now. He understands that the passage was always there, simply waiting for Elisa to find peace within herself. Lysandra appears beside him with a smile that holds both farewell and pride. "She is ready," she says, "and so are you." But before leaving, Gabriel faces one last dilemma. He wants to say goodbye. He wants Elisa to know he never abandoned her. The answer comes without words. Elisa's melody echoes into the threshold, crossing worlds one final time. Gabriel feels her hearing him, not with ears, but with her heart. And that is enough. He steps toward the light and for the first time since his death, feels no resistance. The passage opens like a sunrise, gentle and inevitable. And as he crosses, Gabriel understands that the love connecting them wasn't meant to remain, but to set them free. Their story doesn't end there, it simply changes shape. In the end, this story shows us something simple, yet enormous. True love doesn't need to stay by our side forever, it needs to transform us. Gabriel didn't remain to hold Elisa to the past, but to guide her toward a future where she could breathe again. And Elisa didn't keep Gabriel bound out of grief, but because of the intensity of something she had not yet learned to release. When they finally understood that, the path opened, for both of them. And maybe that's the most powerful part. Sometimes what hurts the most doesn't want to be erased, it wants to be heard. It wants to be transformed. It wants to become music, courage, healing. Just like Elisa did. Just like Gabriel needed. Now think about yourself. What pain in your life is still asking to be set free? What chapter are you delaying to close? What needs to be turned into light? If this story touched your heart, leave a like, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe for more powerful narratives. And remember one thing, maybe the most important of all. Some goodbyes aren't endings, they're the purest form of love.